What's up, y'all? It's T-Tar, and this is Paradox Pokemon you didn't know you wanted. And we're starting off with a legendary Pokemon that looks like this. Now, the coolest bit about Paradox Pokemon is they can expand the story of creatures we know. Well, more so only in the past. Like for the new Paradox counterparts, they're showing us that the legendary beasts used to be dinosaurs long ago. While I guess the future ones are more so imitations of what they thought the Pokemon should be like. But this silhouette here is a past version of a certain Pokemon. Its name is Life Antler. Unblur the antlers, unblur the eyes. It's still got the X in its eyes and all these glowing gems around. It is of course a past Paradox Xerneas, but nothing like you'd imagine it. I mean, face it, all elegant Pokemon would have been more savage in the past. You just don't want to think about it. So what was Xerneas before it became the loved Kalos reject we know today? The whole region was rejected. Suckers stole Pokemon Z from us. So check it out. It's still got the base look of Xerneas, the antlers, and it's still got the 4 legs. If it just put its hands down, it would mostly look like the same deer. But it is actually a savage. I suppose it conquered and then found peace in being the life Pokemon. Like the Paradox Johto beasts, it is based off a dinosaur called the Thrasiniasaurus. I know dinosaurs all sound the same when you hear these long names, but I could tell you a bit about this dinosaur. Its unique feature is that it's got these giant claws that can span like 3 feet long. There's not many fossils found of the Thrasiniasaurus, but by studying what they can, it looks like, despite having these giant claws, that it's actually a herbivore, and that it actually developed them just to protect itself from predators, which fits Xerneas quite well here. So it's a herbivore here, even though it looks savage. All its ferocious features are for the sake of peace, kind of. It's an interesting take, you know. Somehow that life energy back then would have existed in its claws. I suppose as time went on, there were less predators, so it became more peaceful, or you could say its powers became so powerful that it didn't need the physical features. It could just do it all mentally. Because you know, right now Xerneas has Geomancy and is a special attacker. It feels more perfected than having to be a physical attacker like back then here. But yeah, the typing they gave it is Fairy Dragon, which is insane. I can't believe we still don't really have this type aside from Mega Altaria. Do we? It is only Altaria. That sounds like the typing a new pseudo legendary should get. Or maybe if it's like Legends Unova and they give us a pseudo of an existing Pokemon already, like Salamence, they make it split from Bagon as like a Dragon Fairy type. That's future talk. The more you look at this design, the more it grows onto you, and then you could just imagine it in game. The classic example I like to give is you find it post game in some cave in Area 0. And so its counterpart in Pokemon Violet is this. Well, I wonder what this Pokemon is. Despite how plain future designs tend to be, this one is pretty good. So you can unblur certain features. Its claws, its wings, its face. Unblur it all. And it's a giant jet. It's actually interesting, you know. This nail's bringing out like the most potential possible in a future design. And the weirdest bit is it's actually a fire flying type. All these appear to actually be like light projecting out, and the fires too. So it almost looks like if you deactivated everything, it would look quite plain and then could fold up into the flower. Oh goodness. Its name is Iron Death. Okay, let's try to baby this down for Pokemon. Maybe Iron Grim. But as stupid as fairy and flying sounds, for some reason I love it. It's also like they misunderstood what Yveltal was when they fixed it up. But maybe it still is the death Pokemon. I mean, fire, the embers of hell, the infernos. You never know. Maybe this is a Pokemon that whenever it's sighted, it's in this giant tornado of fire. Maybe it brings destruction to forests everywhere. Just like how the new Paradox has got all signature moves. Hydro Steam and Thunderclap, then Psyblade and Tachyon Cutter. What would these ones, the signature move be? Because it wouldn't be Geomancy and Oblivion Wing. Xerneas here is a physical attacker. Maybe Xerneas could get some kind of like physical fairy claw attack or dragon. And then for Iron Death, maybe we flip the script on Oblivion Wing and it's this powerful fire move that gives it recoil damage. So here's another set of counterparts starting with this. You can, I mean, very clearly tell by the silhouette what Pokemon it probably is. Its name is Tyrant Jaw. Unblur this part here, and yeah, you can see it. It is an ancient Mawile. But unblur this, and you can see a dragon-like tail. Little feathers coming out of its hands like it wants to be a dragon. And then the big jaw actually is a dragon. And it's listed as a steel dragon type. complete opposite as the fairy. The idea here is that in ancient times, Mawile imitated the appearance of one of the biggest predators, Tyrantrum, in order to protect itself. And this actually works. I mean, this happens in real life all the time. Animals or insects just know what other creatures look like and mutate to start looking like them. Nature's a weird thing, and this totally makes sense. Which actually brings up a really weird idea, which is that Tyrantrum, they're dinosaurs. So they're literally ancient paradox Pokemon that we have the fossil remains of. If you think about it, that's kind of crazy. These fossil Pokemon are all essentially paradox Pokemon. It just depends on what paradox Pokemon actually turn out to be. Oh goodness, if our resurrecting these fossils messed them up and made them rock types, we're kind of like the future, or we're kind of like the paradox timeline. Anyhow, it's a really cool idea. I think these like spikes should fold back in so you can't tell it's a Tyrantrum always. It just whips it out and like flares it up to intimidate people. Damn, that's what its sprite looks like. That's pretty cool. And so the counterpart to this giant creature in Pokemon Violet is this tiny silhouette. Its name is Iron Puppet. And we all know what it is. It's a Paradox Sableye from the future, but it actually looks pretty cool. So there's no context to this, but since it's called Iron Puppet, maybe it like hides behind a rock and like puppeteers Pokemon, which is actually freaky. It could puppeteer a giant like Tyrantrum even. Yo, what if the predators hunting Mawile were really puppeteered by this thing? God, this brings this into like Dokutaro territory, you know? He's just manipulating Pokemon with this hand over there. In a weird way, when you look at this design, it's like they brought Sableye to life. What if it even lost its ghost typing and was like a pure dark type? I think being a pure dark type works out for it, even though you're urged to want to give it a second one. Which brings us to a pretty grand idea. You can tell by the silhouette, you know, it looks very Pikachu-like. It's called Fierce Spark, and you might not notice it at first when you unblur the rest, but this Pokemon is recognizable. So back in 2018, Game Freak told us that they originally planned for Raichu to be able to evolve again into something they called Gorochu, which is supposed to have fangs and horns and look like a god of thunder, but it was taken out. That's what this thing is here. So it's like reintroducing Gorochu as an ancient version of Raichu. This is one of the coolest ideas to make use of Game Freak's old work. And since it's technically a paradox of, well, it's a paradox of Raichu, but since it's technically supposed to be Gorochu, this would probably be in the tier of those 590 paradoxes. And if you look at its tail, you see that red pattern? It's a fire tail. It's listed as electric fire, which is a crazy typing. So by accident, it actually has the two typings of the ancient past and the distant future, right? Imagine it had a future counterpart in Pokemon Violet where it was still the same typing. Though I guess flip it around, it's fire and electric. It's weird, you know, I get like mythical Pokemon vibes when I look at this. Anyhow, make sure y'all shank that like button and let me know a paradox Pokemon idea you have like Gorochu here. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care.